Although Cobra Kai's initial reception on YouTube Red wasn't as successful as showrunners expected it to be, the move over to Netflix was just what the franchise needed, causing it to propel itself to popularity in next to no time. And with an incredible selection of cast members and fight choreography to die for, it's really no wonder that Season 4 is one of the most anticipated releases in the future of the streaming platform. But with so much appreciation from fans, what are the most paused moments in the runtime of the franchise? And what was behind the eventual freezing of the frame each time? Well, whether you're a martial arts fanatic or just want to know more about some hidden details you might have missed, stay right where you are, as we're about to explore the most paused fan moments from the Cobra Kai franchise. So strap yourselves in and get ready for an incredible ride, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. Number 1, a moment of reflection. Something that has always set Cobra Kai apart from the other successful titles on Netflix is just how ingrained its lore has been in pop culture over the last few decades. Based on the Karate Kid franchise that came before it and expanding on a fan base that many thought was long gone, the showrunners have worked hard to change the overarching story of the show while keeping the past as untouched as possible. They were even able to integrate unused footage of the fight between Daniel and Johnny in the first film, showing that it was not an event that would be forgotten throughout the duration of the series. But this wasn't the only reminder of just how important that fight was for our main characters, with reminders taking place more often than you might think. And since many of these references are shown in a blink and you might miss them manner, it goes without saying that fans have kept the pause button at the ready. A great example of this can be seen in episode 2 when Daniel LaRusso, as portrayed by Ralph Macchio, breaks up his daughter's pool party. After walking around the house for a bit, we see him pick up a framed newspaper clipping that one of the kids had knocked over, placing it next to another clipping of importance. And while this image stayed on screen for just a few seconds, fans of the franchise were able to pause the show and read exactly what the clippings pertain to. The first has a title that reads Mystery Dojo with Single Student Defangs Cobras, and is clearly a reference to Daniel defeating Lawrence in the All Valley Karate Tournament. The other article has the headline of Local Valley Champ Defends the Title Against Karate's Bad Boy, which is another reference to the past, but this time Karate Kid 3, where Daniel defeated Mike Barnes in the same tournament. Suffice to say, Cobra Kai has made a name for itself by playing on and introducing more to the fanbase of Karate Kid, and we're incredibly happy to see that the past hasn't been forgotten, as has been the case for other spin-offs over the past few years. Number 2, the tattoo that gave him his name. Next up on our list is a moment that involves the character Eli Moskowitz, whose fans of the franchise will know better as Hawk. Although he has the makings of a true hero, having joined the Cobra Kai dojo in an attempt to stop himself from getting bullied at school, the power that he gets from his martial arts prowess unfortunately causes him to turn to the dark side. Rather than using the skill he has to defend the weak, he decides to become the very thing that he hates, a bully. This has a lot to do with how Sensei Johnny deals with him initially, humiliating the poor kid so that when he returns to the dojo the next day, he is sporting his signature blue mohawk. As such, Sensei Johnny christens him with the nickname of Hawk, causing him to slowly transform from the loser he was to an unhinged psychopath that won't stand anything getting in his way. In the 7th episode of the first season though, we see that Hawk has done a lot more to his body than curse it with that crazy haircut. When he takes off his shirt, we see that he has actually taken this transformation to a whole new level altogether, committing himself to a pretty big back tattoo of Hawk. Fans who paused this short moment would have noticed something pretty intriguing about that tattoo though, which has gone unnoticed by the broader community. The image of the Hawk was not just chosen to represent the nickname that he was given by Johnny. Look closer and you'll see that it actually has its very own blue mohawk on its head. Fast forward to a few episodes later and we see Hawk change his hair color to red, which is something you'll also notice about his tattoo. In other words, when the man decides he needs to change his hair, he goes all out and does the same to the Hawk on his back, which is a pretty small but impressive detail that the showrunners wanted to include. No wonder everyone thinks he's a little bit unhinged. Number 3, Mr. Miyagi gets his time in the spotlight. Another character that never features in the spin-off but had a massive influence on the franchise is Mr. Miyagi, who was portrayed by the late Pat Morita. As it turns out, Ralph Macchio agreed to reprise his role as Daniel LaRusso on one condition, which the showrunners happily agreed to. According to the reports, he stated that he would only participate in the revival of the franchise if it paid homage to the man that made Daniel who he was. This statement has been one that's been made on many occasions, with Ralph even saying to the Hollywood Reporter a few nights ago that it was important to me that Pat's legacy was not lost, even though the whole concept was about the rivalry between Daniel and Johnny Lawrence. We didn't want the human element of the show to get lost, and that human element really stems from Mr. Miyagi. So it wasn't surprising when the showrunners decided decided to drop wisdom and references to the Japanese teacher every so often in the franchise. They also went on to present fans with one of the most touching scenes in the history of The Karate Kid, which sees Daniel visiting Mr. Miyagi's grave for the first time in a while. The scene was played out with so much raw emotion, with Macchio drawing on what he still feels for his late friend who passed away in November of 2005. Fans who paused the moment to pay respect to the teacher who had brought them up in the past also came to realize something that the showrunners had added to the overall lore of the franchise. As it turns out, Mr. Miyagi's name was Nariyoshi. In other words, when the character was referred to as Kisuke and Yakuga in other properties, this was not actually a reference to his true name. Finally, a mystery of the franchise has been solved, but went missed by the majority of fans who didn't have their fingers on the pause button. Number 4, the return of John Crease. And while we're on the topic of one of the greatest characters to ever feature in the franchise, we have to direct your attention to one of the worst. We are of course referring to John Crease, who is to this day portrayed by the charismatic Martin Kove. He was the man who caused the Cobra Kai dojo to become the home of evil teachings, without whom Johnny would have probably ended up being a much better person than he was in the first film. And when we see Johnny create the dojo once more, causing the name of Cobra Kai to rise from the ashes, there's no doubt that his teaching style is very much adopted from the man who taught him in the first place. That being said, early on, it's said that Crease is believed to be dead, causing fans to think that Johnny's fall from grace was being set to show how the sins of the father can sometimes affect the son. This was, however, not the only reason why his name was mentioned. At the end of the season 1 finale of Cobra Kai, fans found themselves scrambling for the remote when the shadow of a mysterious figure appeared behind Johnny, stating that Cobra Kai has always been his to lead. And when the camera panned over to this shadowy figure, the pause button was jammed down so that many could see precisely what had become of John Crease, who appeared to be back from the dead. Although much older than the majority of us remembered him, Crease returned with the same look in his eyes as we'd become familiar with in the original trilogy. The moment was almost too great not to pause, with some fans even needing to do so in an attempt to catch their breath. And although he has gone on to do some dastardly stuff since then, it was this initial reveal that went on to become one of the most paused moments of the show. Number 5, the making of Cobra Kai. Last but not least, one of the best story arcs of the show saw Johnny Lawrence in a battle against technology, with his student Miguel doing everything he could to help his sensei become one with the digital world. And while this resulted in quite a few hilarious moments, such as one in which Johnny uses the term hash brown instead of hashtag, there was one moment that fans needed to pause in order to appreciate the lengths that Johnny had gone over the few weeks. While making an advertisement for the Cobra Kai dojo, Johnny makes sure to include the symbol of the dojo, which is none other than a chrome-end snake. But as it turns out, this is actually the same logo for the show, making it a meta joke that only really landed to those quick enough to pause the scene. With Easter eggs like that hiding in plain sight, it's really no wonder that Cobra Kai is such a beloved franchise. But what do you think of these paused moments? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.